Hi, welcome, welcome. Been sitting at the bus stop for 20 minutes. My bad, y'all. I got caught behind a wreck on my way home, so it made me a little bit behind, but I'm here. I'm here. Welcome, welcome. Thank you guys for waiting patiently. You guys, this is going to be the start of a series because there's a lot of information here and it's still currently going on. So, this will be the start of a series. It will also be there's a lot that ties in to this true crime story. And like I said, it will be a series. Next week, I will actually, because there are different true crime stories all connected to one main thing. Next week, I will be having a special guest, maybe um, more than one person. It's actually a family, and they will be coming live with me to talk about their family's tragedy that has just recently happened that also ties into this story. So there's going to be lots of information and sadly more than one tragedy. Eh, 1 second. So thank you so much for joining. This is definitely, if you like true crime, you like mysteries, you like, you know, putting pieces of a puzzle together. And again, like I said, this is something that is ongoing. There have also been, I have to be very careful with how I say things and what I say because there have been lots of lawsuits with this story. And currently, I believe there are 14 restraining orders in this case and that surround this due to the protest and things like that have been happening. So again, I have to be extremely careful. Also, this is a case that is local, well, cases that is local to me. So that's another factor, and one reason that I do have to be extremely careful with what I say and how I say it. Not, I usually am anyway, but this case even more so. Um, just grab this. Yes, this one is definitely, if you like stuff like that, this is definitely a series that you're gonna want to follow along. Why do I have NB on my screen? Where? Don't confuse me. What do you mean MB? Where? Where the hell is MB at? Yes, it's me. It is. Yes, it is. Where do I have? I'm confused where I have MB on my screen at. Do y'all see it? Where do I see? I don't see MB. So, let me know. No, it's not Murdahl. No. Or how do you say it? This is actually the story. Well, it all connect again. This is a huge story that connects, but it starts with sadly the tragedy of Micah Miller, the pastor's wife. You may have heard a little bit about that story. 1 second. Grab this here. So you have not seen it, and no spoiler alerts. It says NB in the corner in a red circle. Oh, it's because of the name. My bad. It's because the last time I had this up, that's what it was. Thank you, because I didn't see that. Let's see. It's whenever I was recording one of her lives in case she deleted it. So thank you for that. I was like, where the heck is MB? Okay. So, and again, this is if you haven't been here, this is True Crime Tuesday. We did yeah, it's Lita, there's so much more than just this. I mean, it connects to a lot surrounding the church. Everything here is alleged, based on things that I have found on the internet. It's all alleged. People are innocent until proven guilty. What else do I want to say? Disclaimer. Everything here is my opinion or alleged. My views, my opinions are solely mine. Also, I'm not responsible for anyone's opinions or comments in the feed. That is not the same as my opinion. So I just wanted to put that disclaimer out there that these are all alleged and, you know, based on my opinion. So, yes, Heather, this is going to be a series because there's so much more. There's so much more that surrounds this. Yes, opinion. Yes. Yes, this is live concrete. Hey. Yes. I'm going to add a disclaimer to this once I'm finished. But the saga of Micah Frances Miller, she was a missionary, a singer, worship leader from Myrtle Beach, South Carolina. She is the late estranged wife of Palmetto State pastor John Paul Miller. Now, Micah's death was April 27th, 2024, but the mysterious circumstances surrounding this, along with the FBI's investigation of the pastor months after this tragedy happened, have prompted protests. Miller himself has actually filed restraining orders against the protesters. It has it has been definitely a case that has continued to go on and is continuing as we speak. Now, her tragic death on April 27th, and then her husband's bizarre announcement and how he told the people at his church, which is Solid Rock Church. It has now been dissolved, and now, from what I have seen, they have a new church. It has a new name. So, but it's unleashed full of opinions, narratives, stories. So many things are coming out. Now, Micah actually married Miller in 2018. But what is another part of this story is that before her death, leading up to her death, there was several strange events that happened. Her Facebook post speaking about abuse. She had filed several police reports leading up to this incident. She had even told family members allegedly that if anything ever happened to her, that her husband at the time, she was going through a separation, if anything ever happened to her, just know that it was him who did it. She even said that if something happened to her, it's because he put a in her that he put a I'm trying to think of a word to use instead of anyway, he put a bullet in her, you know. So she even basically said, "Hey, this is what's going to happen, and if it does, this is who did it." So, with all of that surrounding it, there's been a lot of things that are coming out. Again, the FBI has been investigating. So, we're going to get into this. Honestly, it has sparked lots of conversations, and they are even trying to get a law put in place called Micah's Law. So we're going to get into this. Thank you so much, Cindy. We just started. You remember? Oh, there's so much true crime. It is still going on. Yeah, a tracker in the car. I mean, it's so much. So let's get into it. Thank you so much for joining True Crime Tuesday, which it's on Thursday this week. But again, this will be a series if you're just coming in. So I'm glad that you're with me and we can continue to do our research and deep dive into this case because again, it's not just her case. There are other cases that are allegedly tied into this church, Solid Rock. And Micah even alleged that she was groomed by this pastor because when she met him, she was allegedly 10 years old and he was married with children. He's a lot older than her. And she alleges, before she passed, she alleged that he actually groomed her. So this is going to be a rough one, but I think all true crime stories are rough because it's tragedy. So let's get into this. Right, 1 second, guys. And no spoiler alerts, please. Uh, everyone does. So please no spoiler alerts. All right, here we go. Let me see if I can get it. If it's too small, you can. If it's too small for you, you can turn it sideways and it will get bigger so you can see it.
So today my heart's a little heavy.
Oh, that's what I wanted to say. So this was titled, now this was Micah's post that she made on March 23rd, which was exactly 1 month and 4 days before the tragedy.
So today my heart's a little heavy. I've had a lot of women that have reached out to me about situations of abuse.
Hey, Terry.
And I just want to tell you what a lot of people have told me lately and reminded me, because I think I forgot. I knew, but I pushed it in the back of my head just because of my situation. But you are the bride of Christ before anybody else's bride.
Facebook, I apologize, but I do have to let you go. I will put let me see. I will put a link on the page where you see it says, hey, I'm live, y'all. I will put a link there. If you guys want to come on over, if you don't know how to get here, it'll be there. Okay, hang on 1 second. But I do have to cut you off Facebook. So hopefully you can find your way over here. I'm dropping the link now on the page. Let me make sure. I'm going to drop it before I cut it off. All right. If you don't do YouTube, I will see you next time. Thank you so much for joining. But I just dropped the link. So if you go out of the live that you're in now on Facebook and you scroll down right below the live, you'll see the post with the link. Bye, Facebook. Hopefully you'll come join us. Let me cut this off here. All right. There you go. Thank you so much for letting me. Thank you so much for, yes, Julie, very much.
Male or female, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what gender you are. Abuse is abuse. And you are the bride of Christ. And my Bible says that he took all the abuse you could think of for you so that you didn't have to live that life of slavery and bondage and pain. Jesus took it all for you. So you don't have to stay in a abusive relationship, whether that's sexual, whether that's somebody forcing you to take illegal drugs or alcohol abuse or physical abuse, psychological abuse, making you think that this is all your fault, or you're a bad mom, or you're a bad wife, or you're a bad husband, or you're not giving it your all when you know you are. God hates divorce, but why? According to everybody I've asked and the scriptures that I've found, it's because it hurts people. But does abuse hurt people? How do you think God feels about that? So, I want to remind you, like a bunch of people have been reminding me lately, I'm God's bride first. And even an earthly spouse who's a good spouse, when they know that their bride is being hurt, just imagine what an earthly spouse does. What do you think your heavenly spouse does when you're the bride of Christ and he sees his bride going through abuse and hurt? What do you think he thinks about that? So, encouragement in all this is you are the bride of Christ first before anybody else's. And he's got you. and he sees you, and he loves you.
Welcome to True Crime Tuesdays with your host, Feminine and Fierce. That's me, Connie Renee. This is the tragic story of Micah Francis Miller, a gifted singer, worship leader, and aspiring missionary from Myrtle Beach, South Carolina. Her tragic death on April 27th, 2024, has left many people questioning what truly happened to Micah. From rumors of abuse in her marriage, her separation, and disturbing events leading up to her tragic death.
I was in a battle in my mind.
Nilikuwa katika vita katika akili zangu.
And it was so bad.
Na ilikuwa ni vibaya sana.
I tried to kill myself.
Nikajaribu hata jitoe uhai.
I put a gun to my head.
Ya kwamba nikachukua bunduki nikaiweka kwenye kichwa changu.
And I pulled
nami nikaanza kubonyeza ili ya kwamba nijiue.
And the bullet got caught in the gun.
Lakini ya kwamba hiyo bunduki, risasi ikashikwa kwenye bunduki.
And that was God.
Robeson County 911, what's the address of your emergency?
Hi, are you able to trace the location of my phone?
Let me see. You don't know where you're at?
In National Park.
What's the phone number you're calling me from?
Also, I want you guys to pay attention to how she speaks in this call and how she hesitates, almost, in my opinion, just my opinion, almost as if someone's telling her what to say, or it's very odd, in my opinion, of course.
Where's the park located at?
In Fair Bluff.
Let's see.
I have my location on, I think, on my phone. Find my phone is on. I just did my my location.
Okay, I'm showing, hold on one second.
Also, people have speculated that there's been a lot of speculation about this phone call, that it wasn't her on the phone. They're saying, some people speculate maybe it was AI or another female because of the way they say, I think my location's on. And then they say, I think my phone's on. Well, if you were on your phone talking on the phone to 911, what do you mean you think your phone's on? You're on your phone, aren't you? Very beautiful soul.
I don't think you are in Robeson County.
That's the other dispatchers behind the other voices.
Are you at the Lumber River State Park?
Yeah, that's where I am.
Okay. Tell me what's happened.
I'm about to kill myself, and I just want my family to know where to find me.
Okay, ma'am. Just listen to what I'm saying, okay? Let me make sure I got the exact location where you're at, okay? Just 1 minute. Robeson County 911, what's the address?
Now, this is the person, a fisherman, actually could hear faint cries He could hear faint cries. And then when the cries stopped, he heard a pew pew go off. So he made a call as well.
Have your emergency.
There's not like this. I'm in Princess Anne State Park.
I'm sorry, your phone is breaking up very bad. I can't hear you.
Is that any better?
Yeah, that's better.
Okay, I'm in Princess Anne State Park, and I just made contact with a deputy. I didn't get his name. I think I just found a body in the water down there. If you know which deputy is here, if you can tell him back to where he just talked to the guy, white male, orange T-shirt, and a kayak, he'll know where I'm at.
Okay, hold on 1 second for me, okay?
Okay.
This is her Ring camera earlier that day. And you can see the timestamps of when things happen. And then she comes back. This is 11 a.m. And then you see her here at 11:38.
When I get into this and I start to
Listen to what she's listening to.
I came across this passage.
She's listening. That's on her phone. This is her Ring camera at her apartment. That's her phone, and she's listening to Necessary Endings, which is a sermon.
And here it is. You might remember the song by the Birds. Turn to everything. There's a season.
By Henry Cloud.
Speaking of necessary endings, your life of sleeping is over. So when I get into this and I start to look at what the scriptures say, I came across this passage. And here it is. You might remember the song by the Birds, turn to everything. There's a season. Turn. I can't sing, but you know the words. Speaking of necessary endings, your life of sleeping is over. So when I get into this and I start to look at what the scriptures say, I came across this passage. And here it is. You might remember the song by the Birds, turn to everything. There's a season. But here's where it's from. It's Ecclesiastes 3. It says, everything, there's a season under heaven for these activities. And it's beginnings, but look at the passage through these eyes. I never had seen it before. The whole passage is about beginnings, but also endings.
This is Micah's apartment complex where you witnessed that Ring camera footage coming from. Now, as you saw, she had left and came back to her residence a few times that day before she got in her car and traveled to Dick's Pawn Shop down Route 17 in Myrtle Beach, South Carolina, as you can see here. She drove down Route 17 to Joe White Avenue, where she went in to Dick's Pawn Shop, as you see here.
Also, a lot of people were wondering because, a lot of people were wondering because you see her on the Ring camera. She left at 11:38 a.m. and you see her on her Ring camera and she is dressed for work. Now, she was supposed to go to work, which isn't far from her place, where she lived, and she was completely dressed, ready to go into work, and her shift started at noon that day. So when she left at 11:38 a.m., she should have been traveling to her job to go to work at noon. Now, what people are trying to figure out is what happened after she left her apartment and she was listening to that sermon about endings. What happened in that car ride for her to go to Dick's Pawn rather than go to her job? because obviously something happened to where she changed courses. You can see her pulling in, getting out of her car. And then you can see her go into Dick's Pond. And see, she's dressed for work. That's what she wore to work. And I sped it up here, but you can see her to the right in the black. That's where they keep all of their handguns. And so she's picking one out. And then they take her over to the other counter. Where she fills out the information, obviously to get the gun. Now, what a lot of people were upset about is that she had been involuntarily put into an institution on basically, I think, a hold, or I think she was there for a short period of time. And that was in February. This was April. So a lot of people are wondering why she was even able to get that pew-pew that day. There was no holding period, nothing. She just walked in, filled the paperwork out, and walked out. And people were very upset about that. But from what I gathered in the research that I did, it is basically up to the institution, meaning this pawn shop, to then vet the people who are purchasing based on what she's filling out right here. I know, Christine. Based on what she's filling out right here is what they use basically to vet her in order for her to get that same day. This was at 12:12 p.m. And at 12:13, you can see her, or she pulls in at 12:12. At 12:13, she buys it. You can see them, ringing it up, or filling it all out. I'm just fast forwarding it through this part just so you can see it. She signs another form. You can see that's obviously the manager that came up, which is probably who vets them, I would assume. All right. So you saw she puts it in the case and goes. Now she pulls in at 12:12 p.m. At 12:34 p.m., she leaves Dick's Pond. So within 22 minutes is all it took her to go in and get that. Exactly, Beth. Yes, states have different laws. Thank you, Webb. Yes. Okay, sorry, I was reading the comment. But yeah, it took her, less than 30 minutes. She then leaves Dick's Pond and goes to a small gas station, which is what's on this map here. Things that she did that day were odd. Like, she pulled all the way over there, then she pulls her car around and gets gas, and then goes back in. It's so chilling to see these last moments on video.
Then at around noon, Micah was seen on the surveillance footage of Dick's Pawn Shop, which is in Myrtle Beach, purchasing a weapon. And after that, she heads over to a gas station where she purchases gas and a drink. And in her final moments of life, Micah made this harrowing 911 phone call at around 2:54 p.m.
Wow, Beth.
Robinson County 911, what's the address of your emergency?
Hi, are you able to trace the location of my...
Let me see.
Tell
me
this.
Okay, just 1 minute.
She abruptly hangs up that phone call. Attempts to reach her again were unsuccessful. And at around 3:03 p.m., Robeson County deputies, they were dispatched to Lumber River State Park to conduct a welfare check on Micah. And by 3:33 p.m., a search team was gathered, began looking for her. And while they were conducting their search, a fisherman approached them with a bag that he discovered that contained Micah's ID in it. And soon after, the search escalated. And the sheriff's office reported that a person heard a cry followed by a gunshot. This was around 4:23 p.m. And a body was found in the water. Now, investigators then located Micah's car, and inside they found a Sig Sauer handgun case in the passenger seat, a box of ammunition in the center console. Receipts were also discovered that corroborated the timeline of Micah's movements that day. A few hours later, the Sig Sauer was located in the water, and authorities were able to match the weapon's serial number to the box that was found in Micah's car. Now, at the time of...
That's another thing, too. So this fisherman found her belongings away from the water. So, and he could hear her crying. He was obviously fishing on the water, right? And he could hear the faint cries. And then followed by, obviously, the sound of it. And he said, you know, he was distraught over it. People were thinking he was involved. They were sending him death threats. He wouldn't even show his face on the news. He was saying, you know, he was distraught about it, you know, that as soon as he didn't hear the cries anymore after hearing the pew pew, he thought there's no way. So he went to go find it, and he found her belongings in a dry area off, you know, up from the water. What I find confusing about it is that she allegedly did this to herself, but she was found in the water, and the weapon was also found in the water. So I don't know. The whole thing about the weapon being in the water and her in the water, there's really no way for them to be able, in my opinion, if she wasn't holding it. She had dropped it. I don't know. There's just there's so many things that well, Laura, that's what a lot of people think, that maybe they think if he didn't have, if it wasn't him directly, that it was indirectly in some way. But that always confused me that it was in the water, and so was she.
Of her death, it wasn't immediately known what her cause of death was. The medical examiner's office would release their findings 4 days later. But nonetheless, just one day after the shocking news of her passing, Pastor John Paul Miller made this announcement to the congregation of Solid Rock Church.
Instead, I'm going to have you stand up, and I'm going to make an announcement. And
this is her husband, estranged husband, but still husband. He was the pastor at this church. This was the day after. So this all happened on April 27th, which was a Saturday. This was Sunday morning.
After the announcement, I'm going to ask that you leave church quietly and don't talk about the announcement here in the building, please, if you can, so y'all can stand to your feet. Before I make the announcement, I also want to say that my request to you is that you will continue to come to church and serve and give for the next little bit, because I don't want to have. I'm taking a little bit of a break, and I don't want to have to worry about the church. My break may be a few days, a few weeks, I don't know. I got a call late last night. My wife has passed away, and it was self-induced. and it was up in North Carolina. And we're gonna have a funeral for her next Sunday here at 3 p.m. And so it's all I can. Yeah, I'm just kind of going on adrenaline right now. So y'all pray for me and my kids and everybody. And she wasn't. Y'all knew that she wasn't well mentally, and that she needed her medicine that was hard to get to her. And so I'm sure there'll be more details to come. But just keep our family in your prayers. And I'm going to let Pastor Randall, Bishop, he can pray. I'll give him a microphone. He'll pray out. And if you have anything you want to share as well.
That was what was weird.
Okay, so he tells let's also say that he preached an entire sermon prior to his announcement. He welcomed people, he greeted people at the beginning of church. He acted as if nothing had happened. He let the congregation, come in, take their seats. He made, small talk with people. He acted like everything was fine, shaking hands and smiling. He preached an entire sermon. And then at the very end, he makes this announcement and has everybody stand on their feet and says, I'm going to give you this announcement, but what I ask of you is please don't speak about it while you're in the building. What? So you're just going to unload this information and then say, don't speak about it. Don't talk about it while you're here. And also, I'm going to be taking some time off. And I just want you guys to continue to come to church, continue to give, because I don't want to be worried about the church. What? And then he said, I'm going off adrenaline. Not only that, but you mention that this has happened to your wife, that that she's passed on. And then you go on to tell them that it was self-induced, and you mention her mental health and talk about that her mental health is this and it's that, and she needed her medicine that was hard to get to her. What do you mean it's hard to get to her? Oh, there's so much more with that. There's so much more that's going on, but this is just the start of it. This is, I think, what broke it open, just my opinion. But that announcement, I think that coupled with all of the things that she had been putting on social media prior to this and all of the police reports, which you guys are going to find out about all that coupled together, no wonder people had questions.
Weird. That was a truly shocking announcement that he made at the end of a service where, according to spectators, he appeared calm, even at times jovial. And we also heard that he mentioned Micah's alleged mental state to the congregation, which, is a little surprising considering you think that information would be kept private. Another way of looking at it is it's hard to judge what people do in certain circumstances. But I do want you to remember that point because we're going to dive a little bit deeper into that a bit later. But despite the announcement, Micah's family and friends, they were not convinced that this is all open and shut.
Right.
On May 2nd, a person who said that they were a close friend of hers posted to the platform X, writing, she 100% would not have committed suicide. She was excited to start a new life, no longer living in fear of him, and was finally on her way out. So who is the him that this person is referring to? Well, it seems that this is none other than Micah's husband, John Paul Miller. Now, John Paul was forthcoming in his sermon about Micah's supposed mental health issues, but he didn't seem to mention that the two were in the midst of divorcing. And that's important because according to Micah's family, they believe that because she took this important step to leave him, her mentality was to move on and start a new life, which would make her taking her own life very strange. We actually spoke with Micah's family in a previous episode of Sidebar where they, in contrast, voiced their skepticism over Miller's assertion of her mental health issues. They even suggested that she was doing fine before she met him.
So before Micah married John Paul, she had no signs, no history, no indications of mental illness at all.
She wanted to trust that Mr. Miller Jr. was actually doing the right thing for them until she got away from him and had more time when she spent more time with us to peel off some of those layers and realize what was going on. And then she started becoming herself again and got a job and everything else and was doing fine and was happy-go-lucky self again, excited about the future, and which is something he did not like. Just just very terrible.
And so Micah's family firmly stood by what they said were her intentions to start anew after finalizing or attempting to finalize her divorce with John Paul, and that her mindset was geared towards a new beginning, not an end. But Miller was firm in his beliefs about her death. And by the way, he has never been criminally charged or officially investigated in connection with her death. As I mentioned, there's an alibi there. And on May 2nd, in an interview with local affiliate WPDE, Miller mentioned the struggles that he says Micah had been having with her mental health, saying she had struggled with suicide before, and each time we helped her through it and took her to her doctor. We got through it and everything was fine. And so this past time, it's still a shock, an incredible shock. Well, during a memorial service he organized for her.
Okay, and this is another thing also. You saw that her testimony in Africa that she gave them. She was a missionary and she had just had a trip to Africa, and she tells that story about her past struggles. And in my opinion, just generally speaking, with true crime, if somebody wanted to, and again, this is generally speaking, this is not about the pastor or this story, this is in general. Again, I have to be very careful, and you'll see why in the end of this. But generally speaking, when things like this happen, especially spouses who want to do things to their spouse, you have a video of your spouse saying X, Y, and Z. Oh, I did this and I tried to do this. It's almost like, well, here you go. See, she's tried to do it before type thing. And the fact that she legit said the exact words that she had done this and tried to do this, and that God had protected her from it when that happened and when she attempted, and that it got, the bullet got lodged or whatever the case may be. The fact that that's on video, and that video was taken very recently, to the tragedy of what happened to her. I find that to be another piece of this puzzle that is just like, wow. For her to say that on video and it be part of her testimony, again, it would have been something that everybody that goes to the church or any of the other people, the missionaries, and I'm sure they showed those videos when they came back from their trip. So I just find that very convenient. And that's, again, just my beliefs and my opinions.
Her at Solid Rock Church, he delivered this interesting eulogy.
She'd get tourists to take our picture, and I say, okay, thank you. She said, oh no, this isn't good. Give it back to them, and they do it again, But she told me she was so creative. Everything she did was so creative. What's the next picture? What's the next picture? She'd stop. We'd be on the way to like a show or something. She said, stop, I gotta get a picture. I said, we're gonna be late. She said, I don't care. What's the next picture? Next picture.
And on that same day, Micah's family held their own service for her along the beach in North Myrtle Beach. And days later, the Robeson County Medical Examiner put an end to the speculation surrounding Micah's death when it was officially released that she had died from a self-inflicted gunshot wound. However, the Robeson County Sheriff's Office also confirmed that Micah had filed several police reports in the months leading up to her death, which all had to do with various allegations against John Paul Miller. So this leads us to a huge lingering question in this case. Even though Micah's death was confirmed to be self-inflicted, what role did her apparent tumultuous marriage to her estranged husband play in her decision to end it all? Now, obviously, we will never know the true answer to that, but let's look at the beginning, take a look at everything that we can to confirm what we do know or seem to know about their marriage and what questions still remain today. So according to Micah's family, she had met John Paul Miller when she was 14 years old as a member of his church youth group. And there have been accusations that he was...
Now, see, in this report and on several other reports, they have said 14. But in a police report that Micah filed herself, she said 10. So you'll see the difference there.
Grooming her. She was also reportedly married to John Paul's best friend Jeremy before she got together with John Paul. And John Paul was also previously married before he met Micah to a woman named Allison Williams. They were together for 6 years until they split in 2015. And then John Paul married Micah in 2017. They lived together in Horry County until things took a very rocky turn. Now,
that is another thing that I saw differences in. He said 2017. There are other reports by our local news outlets that say 2018. So those were some discrepancies I found also.
Complaint that was filed by Allison Williams regarding custody arrangements for the children she shared with John Paul.
Oh, more than once.
She detailed what she had witnessed between him and Micah. And from her perspective, it all seemed to begin spiraling in late 2021 or early 2022. She alleged JP would preach sermons on the Sundays our children were with him and present in the congregation, disparaging Micah and indicating that she had mental health issues and eventually putting her in a mental health hospital. And she even describes these physical signs of violence that she saw when she went to pick up the couple's daughter. I observed holes in their walls, hinges off the doors, pieces of paper taped to the wall with negative affirmations about Micah. Now, we told you earlier about what John Paul claimed regarding Micah's mental health issues, but according to his first wife, he was also struggling as well. She alleges JP's mental health seemed to be really spiraling out of control, and he began acting even more bizarre with the...
Also, I do want to note, too, this is another reason why people feel like even if he's not directly responsible, he's indirectly, because he alleges that she suffered from bipolar and other mental health issues. And when they found, this woman has testified that there were basically negative affirmations and there were things that he would tell her. And again, this is just from witnesses that have talked and other people who have been close to them that have said these things, that he basically would tell her these negative things over and over and over again. So that's another reason why people think that he may be indirectly responsible.
Seemed to be really spiraling out of control, and he began acting even more bizarre with the constant discord between JP and Micah and JP's own self-reported mental health struggles. The thought of JP having access to guns in his home terrified me for the safety of our children. According to Allison, John Paul was telling her of his mental health issues. But to the general public, he was not revealing anything like this. Eventually, though, as things continued to deteriorate, Micah decided she had enough, and she started to take steps to supposedly escape John Paul. Allison even alleges Micah reached out to her. Micah began calling me for advice on how to free herself from JP and for guidance as to counselors and people to assist her. And then, in October of 2023, Micah apparently took an official and huge step in the process towards her freedom by filing for divorce from John Paul. According to those filings, Micah accused John Paul of cheating on her, along with threatening to throw her belongings into the yard, locking her out of their house, defaming, demeaning her in front of the church congregation. And tensions just continued to boil over for them. However, when in February, Micah told police she was involuntarily hospitalized by John Paul. According to a statement that she gave to police, Micah said she was involuntarily committed for 2 days, beginning on February 8th, and she had to leave her car in a Walmart parking lot.
That is the time that people are saying she was involuntarily put into an mental institution February 8th. And then she was still able to purchase this pew on April 27th. So that was one thing that, her family and others alleged that they did not understand that part of it.
And she says when she was released 2 days later on the 10th, she said she returned to the Walmart to find her car gone, and she believed that John Paul had fraudulently had her hospitalized and had stolen her car while she was away. Now, when police contacted John Paul about this incident, he apparently told them that Micah had suffered from mental health disorders, saying she spends large amounts of money, she stops taking her prescribed medication, and that he took the car away from her so she wouldn't sell it. And our understanding is because the two were still legally married, the car was considered marital property, and therefore it was deemed not stolen according to law enforcement, so there was nothing more they could do. Well, 2 days after that report, on February 12th, Micah's divorce filing was withdrawn, although the reasons for that remain unclear. But what is clear is that their struggles showed no signs of letting up, because as we recently obtained a 911 phone call that Micah placed on February 15th, where she apparently told dispatchers that John Paul had throat punched her in a violent episode.
911, what's the address of the emergency?
Hi, I have somebody who I believe to be in a manic state and is a direct danger to the people in his household and himself and others. I need an immediate pickup, not the 72-hour pickup that a spouse can initiate. I need this to be a little quicker because he is a flight risk. There's been domestic violence. He put his hands on me, and he's pushed me down in front of thousands of people at Disney World. And so, yeah, and his best friend even saw that happen. He slapped drinks right out of my hand. I was in the hospital after that from just a panic attack of what was happening.
In that call, Micah also mentions her fears that John Paul had stolen her belongings, that he was going to try and impersonate her.
He's got my CWP license, he's got my public notary license, and my seal and my stamp, which he's been trying to force me to sign a post-nup for the last year and a half, and I fear that he's going to use my seal to impersonate my signature like he's been impersonating my identity for the past 3 days, to sign that post-nup saying that I get nothing if we divorce.
So, obviously, you know, she's telling 911 this is things that have happened. She thinks he's going to impersonate her. She's already, you know, he said that he signed a post-nuptial agreement saying she got nothing from the divorce. I mean, there was obviously issues here.
And that's not even my biggest concern. It's the identity theft. I don't care about not getting anything from the divorce. I really don't care. But that was given to me by the Secretary of State, trusting me to keep it safe. And then when I got in the hospital, they gave all my belongings to my husband, and we're here now.
By the way, we did a full deep dive on the 911 call in another episode of Sidebar, so definitely go check that out on our Law and Crime YouTube page. But after this, we're up to March 11th, when, according to local reporting, Micah made 2 complaints to police. She first contacted them at around 1 in the morning, reporting that her tire on her Honda had been slashed. And Micah also told police that the suspect, whose name was redacted, may have placed a razor blade on her tire to cause it to rip. She had this car dropped off at a dealership for repairs.
In the police document, the police officer.
So she had her car dropped off at East Coast Honda and had to call the police again. This video comes from from East Coast Honda.
Officer writes that he was at East Coast Honda in Myrtle Beach in reference to harassment, that Micah was getting her tire fixed after it was slashed, that she told the officer the tracking device was on her car, that the suspect showed up, quote, she told him to go away, but she does not want to talk. And then when she pulled out her phone to record, he sped off. The victim said he leaves and comes back. That appears to be the moment we're about to show you. Roll the tape if we have it.
She then leaves Dick's Pond and travels to this small gas station.
Well, obviously, it taped wrong. All right, I might have the other one.
41 Grocery and Grill, where surveillance cameras pick up one of her last moments.
My bad, y'all.
Now, that moment it's a window into everything that we've kind of been guessing between these two, the struggles that they've been having for the previous 2 years, it sounds like. But in the weeks leading up to her death, there were multiple police reports, and this was one of those contentious days where police were called twice. And this video kind of shows the nature of the relationship in that very moment. Now, it's worth saying, he has not been charged with anything. Police have ruled this a suicide. So this is just context for an extremely troubled relationship.
She then made a second complaint later that morning at a gas station, where she said the suspect pulled up beside her vehicle at a gas pump. According to the police report, the man attempted to engage Micah in conversation, but she immediately told him to leave her alone, that she didn't want to talk. In response, Micah reportedly pulled out her phone to begin recording the interaction, and upon seeing this, the suspect allegedly sped off, only to follow her shortly afterward to the East Coast Honda dealership where she was picking up her car. And Micah continued to report her whereabouts and actions to the responding officer who was standing with her at the dealership when another unexpected incident occurred. So while at the dealership with the officer, Micah apparently receives a no-caller ID call, which, according to the report, turned out to be the suspect attempting to contact her. Now, the officer, witnessing the call, advised the suspect that Micah didn't want any further communication and that this alleged harassment, if it should continue, legal action, including the filing of warrants, could be pursued. So the suspect reportedly acknowledged the officer's warning. And despite the officer's intervention, Micah was still concerned for her safety. So she confided in the officer, saying that she had blocked the suspect's number, but was still receiving calls and text messages from him using other phone numbers. And the situation escalated further when Micah apparently reached out to the officer later on that day with a very troubling discovery. The mechanics who had worked on her vehicle at East Coast Honda had found a tracking device attached to her car. So fearing for her safety, Micah immediately contacted law enforcement again, stating that she was at the magistrate's office attempting to obtain a restraining order against the suspect. And the officer arranged to meet her in person to retrieve the GPS tracking device as part of an ongoing investigation. Now, again, all of this is according to reports filed by Micah Miller. And while the suspect's name is redacted in the reports, it is believed to be John Paul who we're talking about, because Micah did go to the magistrate's office that day to file a restraining order against him. A bench trial was held on March 26 regarding that request. The case was dismissed without prejudice. No restraining order ended up being issued. And then we go later on in March, when Micah takes to social media to share what appears to be this vulnerable account of what appears to be her experience with abuse. And she offered support to others who may have been going through similar situations.
God hates divorce. But why? According to everybody I've asked and the scriptures that I've found, it's because it hurts people. But does abuse hurt people? How do you think God feels about that? So, I want to remind you, like a bunch of people have been reminding me lately, that I'm God's bride first.
And her words there appeared to be a clear indication that the difficulties within the marriage had reached a point of no return. And this entered into a much darker realm. Because in one of her final posts on Facebook, Micah uploaded a selfie with the caption, "When terrible, terrible, terrible things happen to you, you all know what I'm talking about, RPF, resting peace face." And she included the hashtags, "Still blessed" and "God is good." And now we are up to April. And in the final days of Micah's life, during that month, she had filed for legal separation from John Paul, citing irreconcilable differences and abuse. And we talked to Micah's attorney, Regina Ward, on a previous episode of Sidebar about that filing.
She had found her passion and she was ready to do that. And she was empowered and felt uplifted, and that we could pursue this without, it being just an all-out litigated fight. So we moved forward on what's called the grounds of 1 year separation. So it's not right for a divorce yet, but at the moment it's called separate maintenance and support. A lot of people refer to that as a legal separation. They are legally separated whether there's a court document or not. So the point was that we were going to go forward on this June 5th hearing. And she was specific relief, return and possession of some property of hers that she wanted to have. And then we would just, for the 1 year to pass, and at the end of 1 year separation, then an actual divorce at that time.
And sadly, we know that Micah wouldn't get to the 5th hearing. She served separation papers to John Paul on April 25th, and 2 days later is when tragedy struck. Now, in the aftermath of Micah's death, scrutiny has remained on John Paul Miller. For weeks, demonstrators had gathered outside of Miller's ministry, Solid Rock Church, for what they say is justice for Micah. And as that was going on November 1st, the FBI had searched Miller's home, where they were seen removing items, although we still don't have any further information on what they were looking for or why or what this investigation is about. But shortly after the raid, tensions with these demonstrators boiled over, and John Paul Miller was arrested after he apparently got into an altercation with a woman outside the church.
So this is where it starts even more stuff, because people have been protesting even now. They're still protesting. And that is, I think 14 of those protesters are the people that the pastor has been trying to put restraining orders against. I believe he actually filed a few more lawsuits in court a few weeks ago, and he continues to file them. Not only the restraining orders, but lawsuits too. I wanted to show you guys this video because it recorded I was trying to record. Obviously, whenever I added something, it took my voiceover and put it on to the wrong thing. So I do want to show you this because you couldn't hear their interaction because you could hear my voiceover. So I wanted to show you this real quick before we get into this part.
In Myrtle Beach in reference to harassment that Micah was getting her tire fixed after it was slashed, that she told the officer the tracking device was on her car, that the suspect showed up, quote, she told him to go away, but she does not want to talk. And then when she pulled out her phone to record, he sped off. The victim said he leaves and comes back. That appears to be the moment we're about to show you. Roll the tape if we have it.
Walk away.
I'll show you the pictures.
Do you want to go to jail?
They'll be on Facebook in a few hours.
Alrighty, you'll be in jail in a few hours. Walk away.
Now that moment it's a window into everything that we've kind of been guessing between these two, the struggles that they've been having for the previous 2 years, it sounds like. But in the weeks leading up to her death, there were multiple police reports, and this was one of those contentious days where police were called twice. And this video kind of shows the nature of the relationship in that very moment. Now, it's worth saying he has not been charged with anything. Police have.
So there's that. So I wanted to show that real quick because, again, you guys couldn't hear me. But he was called twice that day. They called at 1 a.m. And then when they were fixing her tire, that's when the technicians at East Coast Honda found the tracking device on her vehicle. Now, it is noted, I don't know if you heard it, but I do want to note that she did this at Lumber State Park in North Carolina, and his alibi, he was in Charleston, South Carolina, which is even further south from Myrtle Beach. So she went north and he was in Charleston, which is 2 hours south of Myrtle Beach. So he did have an alibi for when that happened. When, tragically what happened. But yes, so I know somebody asked that in the comments. All right, so let's get back to what's happening now. So this happened April 27th. On November 1st, 2024, the FBI raided his home and they were looking for certain things. Now, it's been alleged that what the FBI is investigating and what they raided his home for is things connected to this church, Solid Rock, which, again, like I said earlier, has been dissolved. It is now, he's now, I think, preaching at a different church.
That incident happened on November 6th, and video of that confrontation was posted on social media.
There's JP.
Hi!
There's JP.
Justice for Micah!
They're protesting.
That's JP. Look at him running. Look at him running. Look at him running.
Right.
Uh-oh. Uh-oh. Uh-oh, y'all. What's going on?
So authorities, they were called to the scene, but John Paul wasn't arrested on site. He was arrested later on. And according to an incident report, the woman that he was involved in the altercation with, Sandra Karen, told police what she says happened. She states that while she was on the sidewalk in front of Solid Rock Church, she observed the offender recording them from behind protesters' vehicles in the parking lot. She then went across the street to confront him. She stated she called out to the offender to ask what he was doing. The offender walked away, but she called back out to him, and the offender came back and met her in between two vehicles where words were exchanged, and the victim said the offender began recording her. While the offender was holding his phone up to her face, the victim said the offender asked her, "What you gonna do?" and tapped the bill of her hat 2 times and walked away, after which the victim yelled at the offender, "Don't you touch me," multiple times. So John Paul was later arrested and he was charged with 3rd-degree assault and battery. He was released on bond the following day. And John Paul then apparently shut down Solid Rock Church in an effort to maybe launch a new ministry, Living Water Church.
Officials say the 30-year-old Myrtle Beach woman died by suicide last month. But throughout the case, many of her friends and family have spotlighted Micah's separation from her husband, Myrtle Beach pastor John Paul Miller. ABC 15's Andrew James joins us now after we received new police reports shedding more light on the couple's troubled marriage. Andrew.
Yeah, Connor, well, we received reports through the Freedom of Information Act. Myrtle Beach Police, they released the reports relating to Micah Miller, and one filed in February. Micah reported her vehicle stolen from the Market Common Walmart. Micah told police that she had been estranged from her husband since January 2023 in that report. She said she was committed to a hospital against her will on February 8th, and she was discharged. She left at Walmart. Gone. She blamed John Paul Miller in that police report, saying she was using him since she was 10 and that he, quote, groomed her while she worked at Solid Rock Church. Eventually, they got married. Now, in that report, John Paul also told police that he did move the car, saying it was marital property. He adds that he feared Micah going on a spending spree due to her mental illness, and he didn't want her to sell the car away. Now, police determined the car was, in fact, marital property. No charges were filed. Earlier this week, though, we received reports from police. She feared for her life after her tires were slashed and a tracking device was found in her car. That happened around March.
Okay, so there's the report you could see where she even told police that he had groomed her since the age of 10 when she first started working at the church and doing things like that. Now, the church, again, people are assuming that, well, a lot of reports have come out that believe the FBI raid, which they did say had nothing to do with Micah's tragic death, but they do believe that they're looking into the church. Now, there are several things that have been tied to the church since all this happened. Not only are they protesting, but he has been taking them to court. He's been filing lawsuits, restraining orders. If you look here, all of these are either restraining orders, lawsuits, and as you can see, they're all pending. And you could see, it's him, the pastor's name on all of them, civil suits. Some have been dismissed. You see, this one was dismissed, 121, I believe. But if you look here, and this is all public record, but if you look here, 110, 110, 110, 121, 124, 130, 130, 130. And these aren't all of them, but it's basically people that are protesting. He is suing content creators and people that have been following the story. There's so much to this. And that's why I say this is definitely going to be a series that we're going to be uncovering a lot of stuff, because they also alleged that Micah was using funds from the church to, get her nails done and pay for things that were personal. There have been reports. I mean, there's so much. But also, it brings me into next week, where one of the other stories that people are tying to this church. Let me see if I can pull it up so I can just show you a little bit of it. And I'm in contact with the family. Let me share this here. And this story, like I said, is another tragedy that people are thinking something's going on, that it is somehow related to this church. Now, this couple here that you see in the profile picture right here, the Goebbels, went missing, okay? On May 29th, 2024, Cynthia and Gregory Goebel went missing from 348 Country Lane in Mocksville, North Carolina. On May 30th, 2024, around 11 p.m., they were sighted at Solid Rock Church, which is this same church located at 803 Howard Avenue in Myrtle Beach, South Carolina. On May 31st, around 11 a.m., they were found unalived in Harmony, North Carolina. Law enforcement ruled this death as a murder-suicide, but after reviewing medical examiner and autopsy reports, it became clear that this could not have been a murder-suicide. 2 9mm pew-pews and 2 spent 9mm shell casings were found at the scene. Cindy was pew-pewed twice and Greg was pew-pewed once. Cindy's wounds were consistent with 9mm, but Greg was shot by a .22 caliber. Where was the .22 pew-pew and spent casing? Did they both just disappear? Were the witnesses who saw Greg in Myrtle Beach? Where were the witnesses who saw them in Myrtle Beach? Did they take videos or pictures? Why was this ruled a murder-suicide when all this evidence suggests a double murder? So that is what we're going to, the second part of this series that we're going to go into next week. We do have all of the medical examiner reports, everything. We have all of that documentation, and I will have the Goebbels, the family, they will be joining the live to talk about it and go over some of the things that, how that they've been going through and, how this all works together. Let's see here. Let's see. I wanted to see if I could find. Oh, also, another thing that has happened. So that'll be the second part of the series, which will be next Tuesday. I mean, it gets so much worse, right? It's so much worse. Right, Reese. And again, it has dissolved. The church has dissolved. Not only that, but there's all these restraining orders and lawsuits and things like this. They did uncover also that the pastor sent emails. Here's some of the emails and stuff. So it says here, I have a critical message that I need to report to the court and to the judge. On February 26, 2025, the pastor has 6 pending cases scheduled to be heard with John Paul Miller against the defendants, and it lists their names. It says Mr. Miller has committed a crime in reference to these hearings. He reached out to me and offered an illegal bribe. He's offering to pay me money as well as drop a frivolous lawsuit filed against me in September in common plea court. If I agreed to appear on February 26th and lie under oath providing a false statement against the defendants. He wants to say that they attacked cars, harassed him, took pictures of plates, posted them online, abuses him, and follows and stalks him to every location. So that was sent to the judge, and then they sent the emails and things that he had wrote. It says, if you seriously show up and testify to all the horrible things you've seen, I seriously will bless you somehow, and I'll make sure you sound balanced and truthful. I personally am all for protesting peacefully. So this is against the protesters. And then it says, of course, I'll drop it if you do tell the truth for me when asked about protesters and what you've seen online. So there's more to that. But yeah, they sent all this. Also, this is a text message and it says February 26, 8 a.m. But I need her to say she has seen. And then it lists the protesters and it says scream, harass, defame, attack cars, put license plates and info online, discuss abusing us at different locations. And like he lists all the things that he wants her to say, to the judge and things like that. So, I mean, this is that's why I said this is not something that I can write. This is not something I can do just in one true crime story. So we are definitely going to be my late hubby was very religious and always said the church is within you. He refused to tithe, so he didn't attend a physical church. So many pastor appreciations and birthdays. Yeah. They told me that the devil would try to keep me from them. I started crying, called my grandparents, and we prayed with him. They brainwashed him in a matter of minutes. Ugh. So this is something that, again, I cannot. I'm so sorry that happened. I'm sorry you guys have had such bad experiences. Yeah, and that's another thing. So there's pictures of the pastor and a police officer, and he's handing the police officer stuff. I mean, this is definitely something that is a deep dive. A deep dive for sure. So, the second part of the series will be Tuesday at 8 a.m. or 8 a.m. Listen to me, 8 p.m. Eastern, right here on YouTube. That'll be the second part. The Goebels will be joining me to talk about the couple that I just showed you that was missing, and then now it's been ruled the way it has, even though there's evidence otherwise. So we'll get into that. And this is going to be, like I said, a deep dive. This is still being investigated. The pastor is allegedly still being investigated as we speak by the FBI. Also, because of the altercation with the protester, they said that because he's out on bond, and that is as far as I know right now, it is still a active case. They are saying that if the FBI were to come down with indictments for something right now, that he may not be eligible for bond because because he has that open case, and because he's already out on bond. If he would get indicted and charged with something right now, he may not be able to receive a bond. So again, there's so much. Do you think this will end up as a cold case? I pray not. Well, here's the thing. It's me. Hers, Micah Miller's has been ruled a self-inflicted suicide. The Goebels have been ruled murder-suicide. So their cases are closed right now. I believe they're trying to reopen the Goebel case, and we're going to talk about that. But Creator will still love you. You don't need a physical church, right? So I'm not sure what's going to happen, but again, there's so much in this whole thing. I mean, it's not just Micah's tragic death. It is so much, and there are allegations of so much corruption, abuse of power, financial abuse. I mean, it goes so deep. And again, this is all current, and this is all currently happening. So I feel like we are going to watch it unfold. So that's why I want to do a series and kind of go in deep dive into each of these things, because I feel like it's a matter of time before it hits national news. Micah Miller's story is already in the national news, and it's everywhere. I believe the Goebels will be next, and I believe that this church and Solid Rock and all of these dealings, I believe, are going to come out, especially when the FBI, if they start handing down indictments. I think it's going to blow the case wide open, because people start talking. So we will definitely have our next episode of this series next Tuesday at 8 p.m. True Crime Tuesday, and I hope to see you there. I'm so glad that you guys tuned in with me. If you'll hit that like button on the way out, if you haven't already, I'd greatly appreciate it. Thank you all for joining tonight, and I will be back soon with the malarkey. Yes, thank you, Nikki. I'm so glad. I have done a video about Micah when all of this happened in 2024. I just haven't done a video since. So I really wanted to do this deep dive, and I knew you guys would be interested. I believe in God and I believe in the devil, but I don't believe in church personally. And that's okay too. There's people that don't believe in religion. They're more spiritual. There's all kinds of beliefs, and I respect whatever you believe. They need to start with our sheriff's department. Nikki, girl, there's so much. But I will see you next Tuesday. No pun intended, or was it? No, I'm just playing. Yes, it is, Heather. It's great. I'm glad you guys enjoyed it, and I will see you next Tuesday. I cannot wait to dive even deeper into this. And thank you guys so much for joining. If you're watching the replay, #replay. Love you guys, and thanks so much for tuning in to True Crime Tuesday. I'll see you next Tuesday. Bye. And I'll be back soon with malarkey. Bye. Oh, I'm so glad, madams. You're definitely more spiritual. Well, I'm glad you guys enjoyed it. I'll see you next Tuesday. Bye. Hey, Sherry. Oh, I'm glad you're back.